Welcome to episode 3 of Gender Forking. I forgot the name for a second.
Gender Forking.
Gender Forking, the Life and Death podcast. Where we, Sam and Lori, I'm Sam, that's Lori, discuss life and death. Stephenie Meyer's official take on gender and feminism, apparently.
Certified
feminist Stephenie Meyer.
Today's episode is called Edith is Watching.
What was I thinking it was going to be? Wait.
We didn't discuss this.
I know,
we didn't discuss this.
Mine was Girls Just Want to Hike.
That's a better one. Okay, you win. Edith is Watching will be a theme, though. Today's Forkcast in Forks, Washington, it is 63 degrees and partly cloudy, but the high will be 64 and the low is 50. Sunrise is 5:27, sunset 8:58.
Detailed.
10% chance of rain. Feels like 63. If you have any listeners in Forks, let us know.
God, I hope so. For today's episode, we have read chapters 5, 6, and 7. We've uncovered a couple new names, which we will definitely talk about. And this is one of my favorite sections of Twilight.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed reading this part, and getting to read it from Beau's perspective. Chapter 5 is blood type.
Blood type.
This is a fluff chapter, and that's why I like it.
We're not here for the plot.
We're not here for plot. We're here for discourse. As I'm reading Life and Death, and I'm getting used to these new quote-unquote new characters, I find myself relating more with Edith than Beau. Yeah. And it's like, is it because she's a woman? I don't know. Probably.
I wonder. I do think that I have a flair for the dramatic, which is perhaps
I can't believe you were Edward all along.
An Edward characteristic. I don't know. We'll see as we go on.
Yeah, we'll see once we get to know Archie if it holds true for you.
Yeah.
Because Laurie's definitely an Alice.
Yeah.
One of the first notes that I took for chapter 5 was that it's harder for me to believe that Edith would fall for Beau than it is that Edward would fall for Bella, because women are amazing and men are trash.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I understand the attraction began with thirst.
Yeah.
Like, literal thirst.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like if I was in that position, I would just be, like, annoyed. I would be like, oh, this average boy just happens to have, like, incredible smelling blood.
Yeah.
I feel like I would probably just kill them and not fall in love with them. If I were...
Wow, tag yourself, you're Jasper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
I like, especially, like, thinking about, like, a high school boy.
Yeah.
Like, if I was Edith, I don't know. I mean, if I were me and I was a vampire, not if I were Edith.
Yeah.
If I were a vampire myself, there's just no way.
Right.
It would be vampires all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be dating vampires, but I would also be dating, like, if I wasn't dating vampires, I would be dating, like, 20-something-year-old men.
Yeah.
As, like, a 17-year-old vampire.
Yeah.
In, like, the world for some time.
Yeah.
Like,
I probably also wouldn't be pretending to be a high schooler, so, like, I would avoid that situation altogether.
Choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life is full of choices,
yeah,
and that was a choice. One of the things that I picked out was after Beau leaves the classroom and is talking in, like, medical jargon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't... Was that also in Twilight?
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
I don't recall that.
I don't remember this, like, weak vasovagal system.
Yeah.
Or, like, neurally medicated syncope.
Just something that,
like,
Stephenie Meyer threw in.
She, like, added in that Beau is familiar with these big words. Yeah. Apparently the big words I'd memorized to explain these situations did not impress her the way that they were supposed to. Which, like... I wonder if that's kind of, like, how Stephenie Meyer is saying that, like, Beau is more, like, quote-unquote OCD, and, like, more, like, I don't know.
I don't know.
He just seems like more of a nerd than Bella necessarily is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Stephenie Meyer has maybe unintentionally stripped Beau of some of the more defined qualities that Bella had, and she didn't have that many to start out with.
Yeah.
So maybe giving him, like, throwing him a couple bones every now and
Yeah.
then and being like, oh, he knows some things. Because in the first scene where Beau and Edith meet in biology class, not the first scene where they talk to each other in biology class and they're doing the assignment
lab.
with the lab, in Twilight, Bella, like, actually does a lot of that work.
Right.
But in this one,
Beau doesn't double check.
Yeah.
Or, like, push as much.
Yeah. And it's because of that lady's first line.
Yeah. Which change.
Yeah. She's like, ladies first, and then she does it.
She does it rather than, like, ladies first. Yeah.
So, like, she didn't change the language. Stephenie Meyer didn't change the language of that scene, but that totally changed the scene because of the gender.
Oh,
all right.
Lord above.
Yeah.
Also relevant to this is the tragedy of the loss of Edith not carrying Beau to the nurse's office.
In her arms. Yeah.
But using herself as, like, a crutch.
But she can't because he's tall, and, like, that would look really weird.
I don't know. She might be just trying to, like, fit in and not, like, scoop him up and carry him off, but, like, I would die.
I would love that.
For that to happen. Yeah.
Give me the fan art. Yeah, I mean, that kind of plays into one of the other things that I was most interested in this chapter, which was Beau's apparent lack of emasculation in relation to Edith and just in general. On page 82, he talks about overcoming bullies in his childhood, which is not a backstory that Bella had, I believe. Bella just sort of didn't fit in, and like, but Beau didn't fit in, and he was bullied.
Yeah, and Beau talks about being, or has mentioned once before, I believe, that he's like was the type of kid that was pushed into lockers until he was too tall to be pushed into lockers. Yeah, and that's definitely like, is that the male equivalent of not fitting in? Because I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But I think Stephenie Meyer thinks that it is. Like, she thinks that like Bella not fitting in translates to Beau being like physically bullied. Yeah. Which is that's different.
Those are very different things. Yeah. A lot of people don't fit in middle school and high school, but not everyone is targeted with like mean-spirited actions. And it makes it less believable that Beau is the same kind of like blend into the background character. You know, and something else that I thought about as I'm thinking about other characters that remind me of Beau, trying to like get an image for like how this functions. I was trying to think of like a high schooler, and I don't know if have you seen 13 Reasons Why? Yeah. It reminds me of the main character of 13 Reasons Why, where he's just kind of like, he's the same. Nondescript.
Is he the same guy from Perks of Being a Wallflower?
No. Okay. That's Logan Lerman, right? Oh,
yeah. This is a different guy.
But it's kind of like Logan Lerman.
He's like a tall, or like not brown hair, like just like a normal guy that's like falls victim to like circumstance, I guess. Yeah. And like is like trying his best or whatever, but like doesn't really have a ton of like interests or hobbies. Yeah. And like is kind of flat. Like,
yeah, but like nice,
like caring. A benevolent guy that you're supposed to care about, but like he doesn't necessarily 100% like stand out to me as like, oh, this is him, like what his personality type is. Yeah. He's just kind of like shy and alone. Yeah, there was on page 82, Edith is stopping Beau from driving himself home after he faints in biology class, and she like grabs his jacket and like he can't move, or he can't get away from her. And he says, I wondered if it was supposed to bother me that she was so much stronger than I was, but I hadn't been insecure about things like that for a long time. Ever since I'd outgrown my bullies, I'd been fairly well satisfied. Sure, I'd like to be coordinated, but it didn't bother me that I wasn't good at sports. I didn't have time for them anyway, and they'd always seemed a little childish. Why get so worked up about a bunch of people chasing a ball around? I was strong enough that I could make people leave me alone, and that was all I wanted. So this small girl was stronger than I was, a lot, but I was willing to bet she was stronger than everyone else I knew, kids and adults alike. She could take Schwarzenegger in his prime. I couldn't compete with that, and I didn't need to. She was special. So, like, he's kind of talking through this lack or emasculation or lack of emasculation that Bella never had to deal with, because she was sort of like, she's like weak and like she's a girl, and like she was like, everybody's stronger than me, whereas like Beau has to work through it. You're right. Yeah. And it sounds out like at first he's like, I don't care if anybody's stronger than me, but then he's like, but anyway, like, she's probably stronger than everyone anyway.
Yeah,
so,
he has
like,
to qualify
yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah, he does freak out a little bit. I kind of like, about the driving thing, I made a note about, like, the driving discourse, because it comes up a few times in this 3-chapter span where she drives him home, and it's gonna probably be very relevant in the Port Angeles scene, but in Twilight, Edward being an erratic and, like, awful, like, terrible driver.
it's like, well, it's safe because he's a vampire.
It's safe because he's a vampire, but, like,
if it's gonna scare Beau, then it's like, oh, she's a crazy driver. She's a
crazy
woman.
driver. Like, she's a bad driver. Women are bad drivers.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how that's gonna pan out or feel.
Yeah.
I don't think Beau will probably make any gendered comments. But,
well,
like,
definitely not. I'm sure Stephenie Meyer was watching her back.
Right.
But, like, I mean, the car discourse in general is honestly super rich.
Yeah.
in this book, and we'll get into that in the next chapter with Jules/Jacob. I'm interested as how, like, that sort of emasculation or lack of that will play out. And I mean, it's interesting that he has to address it, because that's one of the things that Stephenie Meyer said, like, wasn't different.
Yeah.
Like, and that, like, a girl saving a guy isn't different than a guy saving
Right.
a girl. The fact that he has to process it either for himself or for the reader.
Especially the ballet studio scene.
Mm.
I wonder how that'll be in the very end, because, like, presumably James will be, like, a woman, unless.
Yeah, it is in the beginning. The huntress.
Yeah. So that'll be very interesting to have, like, this, like, lady vampire beating the shit out of Beau, and another lady vampire coming to save.
Yeah, I'm so lit.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. Like, sign me
It's
the
like,
fuck up.
Do I love it or do I hate it?
Yeah. I know, I can't tell.
The only other thing I wrote down for this chapter is that we're introduced to Dr. and Mr. Cullen's first names, Corinne and Ernest.
Ernest, the importance the importance of being earnest.
Ernest. I think that these names are actually pretty well done.
Yeah.
Corinne is, like, kind of just as weird as Carlisle.
Yeah, but it's like, I think it fits in a little bit more than Carlisle.
Yeah.
I would argue, but also Ernest, I think, is pretty much on target with Esme, which is not a horrible name.
Yeah.
Okay, in the world.
And it's also nice because Ernest is sort of like a quality of Esme.
Yeah, and in the world where Renesmee exists.
Yeah.
Now we have the capability to create 2 Renesmee-like names based on these 4 names.
Oh, wow.
So we have Renee and Charlie and Corinne and Ernest. So we have...
I can't even do that in my head. I have to write it down.
Renee, Charlie, Corinne, and Ernest.
So it has to be Corinne and Renee.
Corinne and Renee, unless it's a gender-swapped baby.
So it would be a boy.
It would be a boy, so it would be
Charlie and
Ernest.
And Ernest.
So that would be...
Oh, God. Chernest.
Chernest. Or... Yep, it would be Chernest.
It would be Chernest.
So now Renesmee is Chernest.
Thanks, I hate
Which
it.
is worse.
Somehow.
Because there's... like, do you go through life like the CH is silent? Like...
What's the nickname? Like, what's the Nessie equivalent?
Ernie.
But that's just like Ernest. Churney. Nesty.
Nesty.
You
Nesty.
You nicknamed my son after a butter churner?
Okay. Well,
Oh my
I'm glad
God.
that we settled that, even though Renesmee can't exist in this universe because female vampires are sterile.
Wow.
All right.
Wow, that was so much. You're right.
Sure was.
Didn't even think about that because it's traumatizing.
Yeah. Can you believe that I forget that Renesmee exists?
Yeah.
For my safety.
Let's move on to chapter 6, Scary
Sure.
Stories.
I have one note about chapter 6, which is I like Julie.
Yes.
A lot more initially than I remember liking Jacob, even as a 12, 13-year-old.
Which makes sense because she's only slightly older than you would have been at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to be fair, I think a lot of people have agreed at least like what I've like the Tumblr discourse on this is that a lot of people have agreed that Jacob is a lot more likable in the first book than he is in the rest of the series.
I remember reading an interview, you read it as well, with Stephenie Meyer that says that like she didn't even plan on developing the Jacob character.
Yeah, it was
just
a plot device.
It was a plot device so that like Edward didn't have to say the words "I'm a vampire," so that Jacob could introduce the vampire word, and I think that having the next book would have changed my opinion on Julie, but
it's hard to know now.
It's hard to
I mean, we know that Stephenie Meyer wouldn't change her dialogue very much.
Yeah, but it would just come off.
But it would come off differently, especially because she's a younger girl rather than a younger boy.
Yeah. I think it's the same with all of the female characters that have been introduced to, that I care more about them. Like, I feel like when they were male characters in Twilight, I was just kind of indifferent to them.
Yeah.
But now
I'm like, wow,
okay.
I stand these women of color.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, so chapter 6 is the chapter where Beau goes to La Push, baby La Push, with his friends for a beach trip and meets Julie Black.
Yes. As well as Sam and Quill. Who are Sam and Quill.
Yeah.
But Samantha and Quill, but goes by Sam.
This is where there was actually just like a little interesting part where I was like, girls just want to hike.
Yeah. I totally like didn't write anything first chapter 6 because I just experienced it as a whole. And then, like,
I would like to cross-reference this moment actually.
Okay.
It says, after a half hour of talk, some of the girls wanted to hike to the nearby tide pools, but most of the guys wanted to head up to the one shop in the village for food. I feel like it was different in Twilight. Well, obviously, I think it was the guys who wanted to hike and the girls who wanted to shop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. After a half hour of chatter, some of the boys wanted to hike to the nearby tidal pools. It was a dilemma. It doesn't say anything about shopping. Most of the other girls beside Angela and Jessica decided to stay on the beach as well, because Lauren didn't want to hike, and she was wearing the wrong shoes for it. Bella waited until Tyler and Eric had committed to remaining with them before she got up quietly to join the pro-hiking group. Mm-hmm. There was no shopping mention at all. Or
I thought I remembered them, like, leaving, but that's interesting, because in this, it's like, the girls wanted to hike and the boys wanted to go find food.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really remember what that was. But that was interesting. I was like, wow, the girls want to hike.
It's like, tag yourself, I want to go find food.
Yeah, but I want to hike.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know why she would introduce that as, like, a new option, because, like...
Yeah, because now there's 3 things that they do.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't...
Because some of them do end up staying in Life and Death.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Sidebar. It's interesting to read this book with all the new characters. It feels like so many people are on this trip.
Oh, yeah.
I was when they mentioned, there's like a million people there.
They mentioned Becca, who is Ben, I believe.
Ben, yeah, and Ben. Justice for Ben.
Yeah, Justice for Ben.
You mean Eric Yorkie?
Whomst else?
Ben and it's Colin in Twilight.
Colin.
Colleen? I think it's
Colleen.
Becca and Colleen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we meet Julie Black. She's, youngish, 14 or 15. I think maybe she's actually 15 is her actual age.
Yeah.
And she likes to build cars.
Yeah, she canonically likes to build cars just like
Jacob did. Which is super cool and super different. Obviously, girls can do whatever they want.
Right.
But usually they don't build cars, so it's really interesting to read about this young girl who is an indigenous person who likes to build cars and has a single mom.
Can't even drive a car.
Who can't drive. Usually it's not, I've never met a girl who started driving before you're kind of legally supposed to, but I've met a lot of boys who did.
I also wonder though if maybe reservation rules could be somewhat different, because I know a lot of places have different farm rules where you can drive on a family farm to do work.
That's possible.
And I imagine that maybe with tribal sovereignty that they would be able to do the same.
Another interesting thing about just that in general is Julie talks about her mom and her grandmothers being tribal elders.
Yeah.
Which is really cool also, but I don't know if that's
probably
historically
not
accurate at all for the Quileutes.
It is worth noting, now that we've reached this introduction to the Quileutes, that the actual Quileute tribe has said that in Twilight, the saga actually, that they disagree with their portrayal and that they are trying to fight some of the stereotypes that have been introduced in them, and just myths and misconceptions about the tribe and the way that they're portrayed in media, which I think is interesting because at first a lot of the discourse around like how Native American friendly the series was based on like how they cast many Native American actors to play the wolf pack and people adjacent to the wolf pack, but like yeah, that's great. However, like I don't think that they were Quileute actors.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah, I mean Taylor Lautner was white.
Yeah, and Taylor Lautner was white, who's the most famous out of all of them, but that's something interesting that is worth looking into. There's like a whole website about it, and also the Quileutes are trying to raise money to
move to higher ground
because of erosion and climate change. So if you're rich, consider donating.
We also meet a couple of the other characters, Sam and Quill. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
First of all, like my name is Sam, and I love my gender neutral name, and I think it's really interesting that Stephenie Meyer chose to keep that one. I think it's even more interesting that she chose to keep Quill.
Yeah.
Sam is 19, and she has short hair.
Mm-hmm.
A lesbian icon.
A lesbian icon.
Yeah.
And also I think it's interesting, like, to read a story about indigenous women.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of any, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
Not this mainstream.
Not a mainstream story. Yeah. No.
And it's also interesting to sort of read through the stories about the Cold Ones and the history of the Quileutes as wolves that Julie gives to Beau. It's hard because so often masculine language is the default, like so referring to something as male or using like he, him, his pronouns for something is like a default, so it doesn't feel as meaningful. But when she and Beau are talking about the wolves as like sisters, and like those sorts of things,
it's so great.
It almost feels so much more obvious that there is a connection there, and that like Julie is going to be a wolf, and that like Sam is a wolf,
right? Not to mention it being like fucking cool.
Yeah, I want that so bad.
I love the discourse around like natural beings being ladies, like Mother Earth, that kind of stuff.
That's true.
It's interesting.
That's just about everything I had for that. I know in Twilight the relationship between Bella and Jacob is not super well developed. It's mostly again like a plot device. So the way that reads here is kind of interesting, like in terms of again like Julie being younger and Beau trying to like charm her. Yeah.
I kind of wonder towards the end in the prom,
like how that's gonna
play out, because Bonnie, like, does Bonnie pay Julie to go to the dance and be like,
your girlfriend,
blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I'm interested in a lot of how the perception of Beau and Edith's relationship is going to look from the outside, because a lot of the stuff from Charlie is like, oh well, he's too old for you, and like things like that, but like you never get that the other way around. So
no, and also like maybe what the relationship between Julie and Edith will be.
It's I just like it would make me even more angry to read about a rivalry between those two, because I'm so sick of like pitting like women against each other.
Yeah, there's absolutely no need for that. Also, like, I think from the outside it's gonna look very catty. Yeah. In a way that like
Edward it already seems kind of catty. Yeah. Like the way that Edith is. I mean, Edith and Edward are like in the books they have such like a sense of humor. Yeah. And like they like and it comes off as kind of cocky, and like the way that Edith is treating like Michaela or something. Yeah. Is like just like she has so much confidence, because like why wouldn't she? Like right. So it comes off a certain way.
But it's like it'll be really annoying to like watch that pan out between.
It's already annoying between Edward and Jacob.
Yeah, it is. It's so annoying between Edward and Jacob, but like
it would be even more disappointing.
It would be like hard to read. Yeah. Between the other two.
So chapter 7 is Nightmare.
Yep.
So at this point, Beau has heard about the vampires, is like pretty sure that he's figured it out, and is doing some more research, and is sort of going through the emotional process of dealing with that.
I wrote that Beau makes a comment on Michaela's outfit.
Yes, with the skirt.
With the skirt and the tank top.
He mentions her skirt is short.
I'm actually going to just look up right now in Twilight to see if there's a comment made about Mike's outfit. Because, like, is Mike wearing a tank top and shorts? Because, like, or it just...
Yeah.
I think that, like, maybe women's clothing is more of a harbinger of, like, the weather.
Yeah. I remember Bella talking about, like, people wearing shorts and her being like, why?
Yeah.
But that's not the same as, like, being like, her skirt only covered half of her thighs.
Mike was coming towards me in khaki shorts and a striped rugby shirt. But it doesn't mention, like, that his shorts, like, ride up, like, halfway through his thigh in the same way that it mentions about Michaela, which I think is interesting.
That is really interesting.
Or...
Next chapter is Port Angeles, which we're so excited to read, and the supposed plans that Beau and his boy buddies have is to go see a movie in Port Angeles and to order or pick up some corsages from the dance, which is the parallel to dress shopping and getting dinner, possibly, in Twilight, which is interesting, and I'm excited for that chapter for different reasons, but that's interesting. It's just interesting.
I'm just like, suit rental? Like,
they can go clothes shopping.
They could go shoe shopping.
Boys don't have shoes.
They could go shopping for anything. Like, Stephenie Meyer's sitting there, and she's, like, looking at her 3 sons, and she's like,
they have to go to Port
Angeles. What do
Angeles.
boys do for fun? And then she's like, movie. Like, what is the boy equivalent of shopping? The movies.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Like, also, like...
They're going to a dance.
I don't know.
It's weird. Anyway.
Okay.
Chapter 7, I think that's, or whatever we're on. Yeah, chapter 7 doesn't have as much richness as the previous chapter in terms of things that I would like to bring up now. But one of the things is that one of Beau's favorite books that he chooses to read in his backyard is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, which I wrote down as 10 million leagues under the sea.
Yep. Which is interesting because Bella was really interested in, like, classical literature, and she read...
I just checked.
Is it Mansfield Park?
She has a compilation. She has, like, a book that has multiple Jane Austen novels in it with Pride and Prejudice and
so she's flipping through. That's right.
She's flipping through and starts Sense and Sensibility, only to remember that after she began chapter 3 that the hero of the story was named Edward, and then she angrily, like, turns to Mansfield Park, but the hero of that piece is Edmund, and it's just too close. Which is super funny because in Midnight Sun, you learn that Edward is watching Bella read these books in her backyard. Edward has already gone into Bella's room and has been, like, watching her sleep. And in her sleep, Bella says Edward's name. And Edward's like, oh my god, she likes me. And then Edward sees her reading Sense and Sensibility in Mansfield Park and is like, oh, she's just, like, dreaming about what she's reading. And I'm like, shut up, you dummy. I haven't read 20,000 billion Leagues Under the Sea, but
I'm reading the plot.
Named Edith?
No, I'm reading the plot right now on Wikipedia. I know that the introductory quote for Life and Death is from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I can read that. It just says, if his destiny be strange, it is also sublime. So I'm not really sure. It doesn't really have the same... as far as I know, there's no character named Edith.
Wow, that's interesting.
Like that. I think that that's interesting that that's his favorite... Like, that's one of the changes that she made, that he likes that sort of book, which features men in, like, more action rather than, like, a period romance, like a Jane Austen novel.
It's just, like, okay...
That's super different. Like, that's a huge change, honestly.
What I just think is interesting is that, like... Stephenie Meyer is an author who is writing about, in Twilight, she's writing a female character, but she's not writing this Life and Death for a male audience. Yeah. Because she's not like, well, I want Twilight to appeal to men, so I have to change the, like, main character so that it appeals to men. Which, like, I guess is valid. Like, you want people to be able to read things that are similar to their experience. However, like, as an author, as someone who writes books for all people, you should be smart enough to know that you shouldn't have to change your main character's favorite book when they're a man, because, like, everybody has to go through school and read, like, some sort of, like, Jane Austen novel or something similar to it.
So I guess, like, in the list of reasons why Bella and Beau are different, we have...
a different favorite book.
Different favorite book, Monty Python and Pale Blue Eyes.
That's it. And also No Strawberry Shampoo.
No Strawberry Shampoo. He doesn't wash himself,
He doesn't wash himself. He's a never nude.
Dirty, dirty boy.
Yeah. Beau being sad about Edith not being in school. he makes some mention when he's watching TV with Charlie to having an idiotic depression about it, which is interesting.
I didn't even pick up on that.
I think it's interesting. I think that it's a nod maybe to like how in New Moon, Beau, or like the life and death universe equivalent of New Moon, how Beau might react to Edith leaving then. And like what that depression might be read as more. What I was thinking of was like how that would seem to an outsider, like if Beau for months was isolated and like cut off friends, whatever. Like I don't think that it would be as jarring as Bella cutting off like her friends for that time period, because I think that men are kind of allowed more isolation. I'm like just thinking about like male friends that I've had in the past who've been like, I've never had friends over to my house before, and like I don't ever have sleepovers with my male friends. Like I never hang out with my friends outside of school, or like do it a lot less than women spend time together as friends. So I wonder if that would pan out differently.
True.
Also, something that just has occurred to me is that like even when Beau is talking about like Jeremy and Alan, I don't get the vibe that they're as close as like Jessica and Angela and
absolutely.
Bella were.
I was just thinking about that.
I feel like even just like even despite like how it's supposed to be the same, I feel that Michaela is much closer to Beau, even though sometimes it's annoying how persistent she is in wanting to date him. Like I feel like Michaela is more of like the closer friend in a way that Jessica and or like Jeremy and Alan aren't.
I was just thinking about how I think Jessica is a much more clear character than Jeremy in terms of personality and voice.
Maybe it's because like I don't know, Bella has like a way of like relating to other women in some way. Like she understands what Jessica and Angela are kind of thinking. Right. She understands them in a way that I don't think Beau is that perceptive about.
I mean, he's literally talked about how he doesn't get along with a lot of boys.
Yeah.
Not that Jeremy and Alan are like the sporty types either.
No, but
I mean, again, like they don't really those personalities don't translate very well. Maybe is the case.
I don't know. I don't pick up on that relationship being as strong as I felt like Jessica and Angela and Bella's were. Yeah. But maybe that will change in Port Angeles.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that'll be interesting to get more dialogue. Yeah. Do you have anything else?
I have like a line that I picked up on how like something we touched on last episode. How Charlie is like, I took care of myself for 17 years before you got here, when Beau is like, by the way, you're on your own for dinner tomorrow. Yeah. Like, I thought that was kind of like maybe just like a nod to the fact that
Beau is perceiving it
differently than how it actually is. Yeah. And I think that we've been right in assuming that. Yeah. That's just something that is new that I've picked up on in this that I just glanced over in Twilight, but I'm sure is still present in Twilight.
Coming up next episode is the very exciting chapter of Port Angeles. Very interested to see how Meyer adapted that, because it will need to be adapted in many ways, and how it will come across. Yeah.
And then the book kind of picks up from there. So we've got a lot happening as far as plot advancement. Yeah.
I'm anticipating that maybe Port Angeles, we won't read as many chapters for the next episode.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah. But for now,
yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time. That's all, Forks.
Thank you for listening to Gender Forking. To stay updated about the podcast or to contact us, follow us on Twitter at genderforking, or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/genderforking. For more Twilight content from us, you can follow our blog at bowlingshirtbellas.tumblr.com. If you haven't read Life and Death and you aren't reading along at home, visit bowlingshirtbellas.tumblr.com/genderforking for plot summaries and more information about the text. For other inquiries, you can email us at bowlingshirtbellas@gmail.com. The music you are hearing is Thursday in Snow Reprise by Blank Kit.